Well, Razorback fans, we had a chance to hear from Sam Pittman as well as Ben Sowders yesterday to start fall camp. Interesting comment about Taylen Green. Was a lot more hurt than we even realized last season. What does that mean? Let's talk about in today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday as you made it, finally, to the weekend. And we know that fall camp is starting up officially today. In fact, this morning, by the time you're listening to this podcast, practice is already underway. They're starting at 6:20 in the morning. So we'll have some things to talk about, I'm sure, from that. But we're going to dive into a little bit of what we got to hear yesterday from Sam Pittman, dealing with some of the deeper positions on the team, as well as his thoughts on the Darren McFadden honoring of number 5. But the first thing I wanted to bring up, though, is talking about Taylen Green and a comment that was made by the strength and conditioning coach yesterday in Ben Sowders. Now, Ben Sowders is a guy who's entering in his third season. I really like him. I think he's a very intense guy, very good at his job, and obviously knows a lot about the strength and conditioning part and element of college football. And, you know, it's fun to hear about the different sizes and speeds and shapes and all those things that go into it and getting the updates from it all and everything. But the comment that really stood out to me the most that he made yesterday was when he was talking about Taylen Green last season. It was pretty fascinating because, listen, we know last year Taylen Green dealt with some injury. He went out in that Tennessee game, was having to go through a lot, but still went out and played the majority of the year, still out and performed really well. But how injured was he? Apparently, Ben Sowders thinks that we don't even realize how bad it was.
One thing I want to do, tell y'all don't understand how bad Taylen was hurt last year. This year, especially the last half of the season, I'd watch out. I mean, the kid's worked his butt off. We've kind of kept it in-house, but he's a tough sucker. I mean, what he dealt with the last 7 games of our season, I mean, in the bowl game, a lot of people wouldn't even play. I'll just keep it like that. I'm not going to let his info out, but long story short, he's a tough kid. He's put on 10 pounds. Another kid put on 10 pounds. It looks like it. And his speed, he is now, the last 2 weeks of summer is really trending up. So his speed is only going to get better too.
So pretty fascinating from that. Going into Taylen Green and what he dealt with last year. Now, again, I know that injuries and being banged up and hurt are just part of it, and it's part of being a college football player, and it's part of being a quarterback, even at that position. But it does make me wonder, just from the aspect of, you know, how much that impacted him, how much that impacted Arkansas' season. Because if you think about it, with the injury that he personally had to deal with, you know, as far as the timing of it, he dealt with a few things, but we all remember the one that he had happen when it came to the Tennessee game. That one was tough because Arkansas, of course, they were able to win the game. Malachi Singleton came in, and how great it was for that to work out and everything like that too. So, like, that's just stuff that, again, if you're a Razorback fan, you got to be looking back on that fondly, at least a little bit of a way. But still, I was looking at it from the perspective of this particular way in that game. You beat Tennessee, and you're sitting at 4-2, right? You're sitting at 4-2, where you lost an double overtime game to Oklahoma State. You shouldn't have lost, and then you lost to A&M 21-17 in a stupid way. Like, there was no doubt that last year you started off the strongest, and you were in a great position. I remember heading into that bye week too, coming off that big win, heading into that bye week. Just thinking about, man, this could really open up. You're 4-2 after 6 games. Surely there's no way you finish 2-4 in the next 6. Well, unfortunately for Arkansas, that's what happened. I think back to the game against LSU. You had a bye week after Tennessee. You have LSU at night. And I remember thinking and being at that game and being at the tailgates and leading up to it, it was electric. It was about as good as of anything you could ask. It was about as fun of an atmosphere that you could ask for at that point in time. And you just got throttled by LSU, 34-10. 34-10. Now, granted, you beat Mississippi State the next week, and that's great, but they were the worst team in the SEC. Then you get throttled by Ole Miss at home, and then you get beat pretty handedly by Texas at home. Coming also after a bye week. I mean, it was 20-10, but never really in doubt. You beat Louisiana Tech, great, and then you lose to Missouri on the road. Point is I'm looking at this, and it's not that Taylen Green was awful. It's not that making excuses or anything, but it does make you wonder about some of these particular games. How much of an impact did it make on his performance, his offensive performance, his ability to make good decisions, and dealing with the injury that was, what it could have been like, what it could have been different. I would have loved to have seen it. Now, Ben Sowders goes in and starts talking about, now I'd watch out for him in the second half here in the second half of the season because he's been putting in the work and he's getting tough. And I'm like, that's great to hear because, as we know, the second half of the season is going to be the most brutal. I mean, that's a brutal schedule no matter what. But if you are looking at it from this perspective of Alabama, Arkansas State, Ole Miss, Memphis, Notre Dame, and then you get to the bye week. So you got 5 games and then a bye week. Granted, 2 of those games are against high-quality opponents, and 2 of them are on the road. And honestly, being 3-2 in that position is probably what's to be expected, but anything above that would be incredible. If you're able to get, if Taylen Green is as healthy as what people are saying that he could be, and or how good he is when he's healthy, and say if you're really performing level at a high level, and the team's doing really well, it does make you wonder, okay, so how confident can you be in that next stretch of games? Because think about it this way, folks. That middle spot right there after that bye week, it's tough. But you have at Tennessee, tough game. You beat them last year, but it's a tough game. And then you have arguably your 3, quote, easiest games at home back-to-back-to-back weeks with A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State. And then you got another bye week. So you're talking about 5 games, pretty tough, bye week. 4 games, one of them pretty tough, but a lot of them at home, bye week. And we all know the last stretch is going to be a pretty brutal one either way. But the point is that if Taylen Green is going to be able to perform at his best, he's got to stay healthy. We all know that. But if he's healthy, is it going to be that big of a difference? Is he going to be that big of an extra type of player that we've been talking about here on this podcast, at least, of him being able to put the team on his back, win a bunch of games because he's just that dude, and how different it could be and how different of a difference it could be whenever he's going out against some of these high-quality opponents. You know, last season is last season. You can't do anything to change it. If Taylen Green wasn't beat up and hurt, does Arkansas go from 6-6 to 9-3? I don't know. Probably not. I wouldn't think. But do they perform better against LSU? Do they perform better against Texas? Do they perform better against Missouri? I mean, do they perform better in those games? Maybe. Maybe. But the frustrating thing was last season, and this is kind of where I'm going with all of this. Last season, when you started 4-2, and you were coming off of that huge win against Tennessee, and you had 2 losses at the midway point of the season, you look back on, you're like, we should have won those games. You didn't, but you feel like you should have won them. And you have a bye week. And then LSU comes to town, the night game. That was such an awful performance by Arkansas in that LSU game that it's really when I started to sour a little bit on Sam Pittman and sour just a little bit on everything. Because if you're given some sort of circumstance and some sort of home game and an atmosphere and an energy and a bye week and everything, those are the times that you need to be able to play your best football. I know injuries are going to happen, but there's no excuses for teams like Arkansas not to be able to have their healthiest, their best performance, and they're also their best game preparation for whichever team they end up facing, but coming out of that bye week. And this year, you're set up pretty nicely for the byes. You got set up nicely last season. you're set up pretty nicely for the bye weeks. They come in opportune moments, and it gives you time to get ready for some pretty major opponents that you'll be facing, especially on the road. So I'm excited about that, but I'm also, one of those things that hearing Sowders be so adamant about Taylen Green and how tough it was last year, and you better watch out for him this year. I hope so. I hope we all get to see how great Taylen Green can be this season. I hope we all get to see exactly the type of player that we all knew he could be and all of those things. That's what I'm hopeful for. But until we actually see it, we're just going to have to deal with it. But either way, Sam Pittman did go and talk about his deepest positions and some of the positions he's been very impressed by heading into fall camp. We'll talk about that and hear from him here in a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, I got to tell you about our friends over at Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through the back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts. And that's where Drip Drop comes into play. Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly and delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of any of the leading sports drinks. You all know that how important hydration can be to making sure that your body stays intact. And then, of course, the older you get, like someone like me, hydration is key because sometimes you're drinking those energy drinks. Sometimes you're drinking having a lot of sodium, and you don't really realize just how much of an impact it can have on you in a negative way. It can impact your sleep. It can impact your workouts. It can impact your day-to-day routine. So get out of that and get that help and get Drip Drop to make sure you're getting all the electrolytes that you need to stay hydrated. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So again, we got the chance to hear a little bit from Sam Pittman yesterday, and he had a couple things to say. Nothing too crazy because there's nothing changed really from SEC media days when he was able to meet with the media. Now, he has another press conference that is happening today after practice, which maybe we'll have a little bit more to find out and to hear about. But still, just a couple things, though, that stood out to me. And one of them was when he was asked about the depth of his team and some of the position groups that he's been most impressed by when it comes to their depth. Here's what Sam Pittman had to say about that.
Corner, I think we're pretty talented. We're big, and we're talented. We can run. Corner has a lot of depth there, so that would be one of those positions. Who's going to be our top 6 wide receivers? What are we going to do with Marion Harris? We're obviously going to give him an opportunity to start for us. If he doesn't, where are we going to play him? And he's got ample opportunity to start. I'm not saying that, but he's very vital to us because he can play several positions. Let's look at him. 282 pounds a year ago, 313 now. Ben, correct me, but, 311, 313 now. You got a whole different cat. You got a whole different guy. And so he's obviously going to run out there on the depth chart with the ones. It's his job to keep. But those guys would be running back. We feel like we have several there. Where's A.J. Green going to be in that? Where's he going? Where will Cam Settles? Is there going to be a role for Cam Settles? We're certainly going to run K.J. Jackson at times with the ones, the full ones, and let him get in there and see what he can do. I think it helped us doing it that way last year with Malachi, where he went into when he went into the Tennessee game. Not only did he believe he could do it, everybody around him on both sides of the ball believe he could. So we have some things there, and then I think finding the 4th linebacker is big, even though I think Waylon is setting in good position to do that. And then the last one, I think the biggest thing is where are we going to play these safeties? I feel like we have 5 to 6 that are ready to play. Who's going to run out there with the ones, where they're going to run out there with, and who can play boundary safety, strong safety, who can play hog, because we learned our lesson in COVID about that when, some guys would find out on Friday morning, and we had to be ready to go play. And so we learned that, and I think those, to answer your question, those would be a few of those battles.
Okay, so he basically went through a lot of different position groups there, so it's not like, oh, it just one. But he did say overall in the different part of the press conference there that this is the deepest team that he's ever had. Just take that for what it's worth. He mentioned about the fact that sometimes when he first got there, they were more about the speed side of things, and now they're trying to go for the speed and size, which I think is a pretty obvious deal. But a few things, though, when the first come out with cornerback, that was the first thing that hit him, and, the first one that he mentions. To me, that shows that there's a lot of excitement there about cornerback, and I've heard good things about cornerbacks. There is a possibility, I know it's weird to think, but there's a possibility that the secondary in general could be better, maybe one of the best ones that Pittman's had since arriving on campus, because you mentioned cornerbacks and then safeties, 5 to 6 of them that they could end up playing, which is a great amount. But when it comes to the depth angle of it all, the secondary seems to be the one that Pittman's very impressed by. He goes into wide receivers, and the wide receiver thing, it's like everyone has depth at wide receiver pretty much because you have so many of them. And it's up to you to choose how many you play. I mean, obviously, you can choose whoever you want to play, but are you going to run one wide receiver, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 out there on the field? Like, you can have different formations, different measurements, different things for different wide receivers and what you think good about them. And so to me, that's a no-brainer, but still, if you have depth there, is it the quality depth that they're going to be the go-to guys? How's that going to work out? He goes into about a Marion Harris very specifically, which I thought was fascinating, which offensive line, we know you've replaced quite a few guys out there. Carmona's kind of the one you're looking at the most of being the leader and the guy that's going to be counted on. But Marion Harris is a guy that's gotten a lot of run, and he's gotten a lot of experience. And they kind of saying that, like, hey, he's going to be the one, but, are we going to have other guys that are going to be into the mix? Maybe somebody steps up, because he even said there could be 6 or 7 offensive linemen that really find their way to start playing on this team and getting some run there too. He goes through running backs. And of course we know about him, but the AJ Green thing, it's almost like I forgot about that again. I forgot about AJ Green. It's like, oh yeah, he's back on the team. And I remember his freshman year and even sophomore year, he was one of the running backs to where, I'm not saying he was the best one, because I think Rocket Sanders obviously was that. I think Dominic Johnson was really good too. People forget about him until he got injured. But I think back to AJ Green and just knowing the speed that he had, his ability to get out in space. I thought there was a lot of talent there, but then he transfers out. He deals with an injury, and then he comes back. What's the expectation? I have no clue. I mean, he could be a guy that really contributes, or he could be a guy that's just buried in the depth chart because of not being able to get over his injury or because other people are better, whatever it may be. So he goes through that. But then one of the more fascinating parts about all of this was the KJ Jackson angle. He says, we're going to have KJ Jackson, which is the backup quarterback, run out there with the ones and take snaps with the ones and be in practices with the ones. And some of you may feel a certain way about that, of saying, oh, okay, so does that mean they don't trust Taylen or anything? And he kind of went into the explanation of saying that's what we did with Malachi last year, and he comes into the Tennessee game and feels really good. I'm going to tell you guys about this right now. That is a Bobby Petrino special right there. Bobby Petrino, you all know I'm a big fan, but that dude not only knows how to coach quarterbacks really well, but he knows how to make sure that every quarterback on his roster is ready for whatever. Think back to any of the times when he was at Arkansas or at Louisville or anything where his starting quarterback had to go out and this backup quarterback comes in. Not to say they play as good, because there's a reason one's a starter, but just comes in and completely craps the bed and doesn't look competent. Like Arkansas kind of had that for a little bit, which was one of my biggest criticisms of Kendall Briles. It seemed like there was never any backup quarterbacks that were fully ready to take on the role in case something happened. Petrino always makes sure that his quarterbacks are ready. And KJ Jackson, this is normal. This is going to be a thing too, because I'm going to be honest. I really hope Taylen Green plays 100% of the season and he's 100% healthy all year long. But knowing college football and knowing the SEC and knowing him, it just seems like it's probably a very unlikely scenario that he plays every single play and is 100% healthy. So if there's times he goes out, I feel good about KJ Jackson coming in. That's for sure. Sam Pittman did give his thoughts on the Darren McFadden honoring. Is it okay? Is it all right? Y'all know how I feel about it, but how's Pittman feel about it? We'll talk about that Coming up next here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, we all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, right? Well, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, but that's where Game Time comes into play. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And I know some of you are going to be tired of going through and trying to find the biggest and best deal, going through the different apps and trying to find, okay, well, which one's that one? Well, don't worry about it, because Game Time is always going to be the app that gives you the best deal guaranteed. And it's got a panoramic seat view, so you can always see about where your seat is going to be located and what the view is going to look like before you even have to buy. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Again, we had a chance to hear from Sam Pittman, and he was asked about the Darren McFadden honoring and putting the number 5 patch and silhouette on someone who's wearing number 5. It should have been something that was retired, whatnot. Either way, Sam Pittman did have an opinion on the matter, and here's what he had to say.
Well, I say this. I think Darren can answer the question better than me. The number 1 jersey that we get asked for is 5. And there's a number 1 reason why they want to wear 5. And it's because the greatest, one of the greatest, however you want to look at it, player in the history of Arkansas wore 5. Now, if you look at it and you go, you're in the Hall of Honor, you know what I mean? You've got your jersey up there, but yet somebody's got your patch on there and the number is still out there. I think that would be really cool. You'd have to ask him, but I think that would be really cool. Here's what I do know, that when we were able to visit with him, Monsieur Hunter, Yurchek and myself, when we were able to visit with him, it hit him. And that's what you want, you know. It hit him. For whatever reason, he'll have to tell you. But it hit him, which then hit us, you know. But I think that was a great idea, well earned. And I think that you'll have to talk to him, but I think he liked it, that his number's still out there, but yet his jersey is somewhere else. So I think it's really cool, to be honest with you.
So there was Sam Pittman talking about Darren McFadden's deal, which he didn't say anything bad and nothing I didn't disagree with. In fact, I love the fact that he approached it of, hey, you're just going to have to ask Darren McFadden. Because you can kind of tell that Pittman was like, hey, I'm about this honor, and I love it, but as long as it's what Darren wants and as long as he feels great about it, and went into saying, yeah, you saw the reaction that he had. He was really emotional. It's really great. And he also talked about, hey, the number that they get requested the most is number 5. But as some of you tried to point out, like, oh, but it's about recruiting. You know, you're letting that just goes to prove it. I don't think it's that. I think it's, as he was saying, it's more because of who wore it, Darren McFadden. So to say that a player who would come in and demand number 5 for any other reason than another Darren McFadden, it's like it's a different scenario. So again, I talked a lot about it in length, but it was nice to at least hear Sam Pittman talk about it and be honest in saying, hey, I think it's cool, but you'll have to ask Darren. You'll have to ask him about it because he doesn't want to speak for him. So I like that. I like the mentality and I like the approach. And, you know, again, I talked about it, but there's at least an honor there for Darren McFadden. The more honors, the better. I'm good with it. I'm fine with it. We'll see how it all plays out, but I still want more. Still want just a little bit more. Either way, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.